Cool. Hey, everybody, it's Noah back at again with the Zone Podcast. Today I'm with Daniel. He's the owner of Soul Roof. So go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everybody kind of what you do.
Yeah, I'm Daniel Duerto, the founder and currently only executive at Soul Roofs.
Mhm.
And basically, we are introducing a new residential solar application that will hopefully be a little bit more mass adoptable to really accelerate the adoption of solar on houses.
And for you, like, is it more like the manufacturing side is how you got into solar, or how'd you kind of get into solar?
Yeah, I mean, I had always had interest in it from a young age. Uh, and in the beginning, yeah, I was more focused on more product development. But instead of taking the technical route and going to school for engineering or something related, or could have been business or whatever,
Mhm.
I just went straight into working in solar. I went blue collar, and just I got in utility, even though my interest was in residential, which was kind of funny. But utility just offered more money.
Mhm.
Um, and worked in utility for a few years. Worked in residential for a few more years. Did a little bit of commercial as well, and more recently just kind of started doing my own thing in residential with the subcontracted installations. So not full
Okay.
EPC, but installations that are just contracted out.
Okay. So you have a very interesting start in solar. So you were starting more on the installation side instead of on the sales side, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a little bit of sales through essentially just a third party sales company, just because I was interested in how that side of everything worked. Even though I came from an install, well, I was an install, and
Mhm.
I really just wanting to learn kind of like all the ropes and like all the aspects that go into what a solar company is or how the industry works, I guess. And
Mhm.
yeah, it was pretty. I actually did that fairly recently. It was a little bit over a year ago that I like closed my own sale and everything, and kind of saw how that process works. So it was it was great for me because I needed all these experiences to really have a good understanding of how the industry works, and
Mhm.
essentially on that is how I started building a solution for the problems that I found.
Okay. So your kind of main thing right now, though, if I'm correct, is you find other like EPCs and you're installing for them right now.
Yeah. Right now we've been just doing subcontracts. So I have a crew, pretty tight knit crew, and we usually do sub installs, but it could be other little jobs like uninstall, reinstall, maintenance, troubleshooting, those types of things. And we really don't do in-house sales unless it's a cash sale, just because we don't offer financing through us. If it's
Okay.
financing, it would have to go through someone else.
Okay. And then with utility, a lot of people like not a lot of solar people know about like utility work. You said you did utility work. What does that look like? Is that like solar farms and stuff like that?
Yeah, so utility scale solar will be your massive. I mean, you might see them if you're driving around certain parts of Texas or out in
Mhm.
the country, but I mean, they're all over. You don't know unless I guess you see it. But yeah, you'll see these huge solar farms, and they got all of the trackers and the racking that are set up, and I mean they're massive. They're tons of football fields long, and there's hundreds of thousands of panels in them. And yeah, essentially with utility, it's just one big solar installation that all goes into its own substation that is then fed into the grid. So depending on the size of the farm, it could be enough. It could generate enough electricity for anywhere from a couple hundred to several thousand homes. And it helps a lot with offsetting the energy usage, at least in Texas, because we have our own grid. But yeah,
Mhm.
really anywhere. I mean, it's really been, I'd say, since like 2016, 17, kind of started to really. I mean, this in the industry as a whole kind of like started, had rapid growth, like year over year growth. I'd say since like 2016, 17, and pretty much every aspect of the industry, both utility, commercial, and residential. Commercial is actually a little bit slower, but commercials right now seeing a lot of growth, which is cool.
Do you guys install commercial, or you said you're mainly focusing on residential?
Yeah, so we do. Yeah, we focus on residential, but I have done commercial. Yeah.
Okay. And then the
Yeah.
other thing is where do you think the solar industry is going? Like when do you think it'll be all like utility for the most part of the people that can't qualify for solar on their house and then everybody that can qualify for solar should go solar and then commercial probably the same thing?
You know, I think that it's gonna take all three. It's gonna take all three, and it's
Mhm.
gonna, it's gonna take as much development as we can push within all three aspects of the industry if we really want to, like, meet our net zero goals.
Yeah.
And without even getting political or into climate change, it just, again, I kind of always return back to the idea that solar is kind of like a common sense solution, because it's like, essentially it's almost like, we're generating free energy from the sun,
Mhm.
other than your upfront cost and then your, low maintenance cost, or depending, I guess, on the system. But, it's going to take all three to really accelerate and get to those goals, just because, utility takes its time to actually get it, on board and running. Those processes usually take anywhere from like, could be anywhere from 6 months to, 2 or 3 years to finish out a project. Um, Commercial is the same. They usually take, a couple weeks to a couple months, and they're not always overproducing on the commercial side as of now. I mean, I'm sure there are projects that do, but I think we'll see a lot more growth in the commercial sector, just because there's a lot of roof space out there for commercial. There's a really cool company in Austin called Yada, and they
Mhm.
do modular and microinverter and battery storage at the modular level for commercial, which is something that no one was really doing before them. Um, and they have a lot of good data on just like how well the potential that commercial has and how much it could grow, over the next 2 to 5 years, just with the roof space that's available right now. So there's definitely a lot of potential for commercial, but of course we focus on residential just because that's always been like kind of like what you think when you think of solar, you probably think of mostly residential.
Right.
Um, and for the individual customers, it's always cool, the idea that you could have a smart home that generates its own electricity. I know personally I've paid a lot of high electricity bills, especially during the summer, so I know the pain. I don't have solar in the house I have right now just because I don't own it, but I know, like, if I were a homeowner, that would definitely be high on my list of things that I wish I could solve, would be those high electricity bills. um, and I mean, yeah, I mean, just the idea of like having a home that's self-sufficient, again, like, it's common sense.
Yeah, yeah. So with that, like, what do you think about the solar industry having like such a huge sales culture and such a huge like door to door culture? Do you think that's good for the industry? Because you're most people that I do interview are actually in that, or they're in virtual closing stuff like that.
Hmm.
But you have a very interesting like perspective.
Yeah.
So do you think that's good for the industry, or do you think it should be more of like an online type of thing of like we're just going to go
So,
ahead, the government should take it?
we so our business model will actually focus more on D2C, and we're not the only company that's doing that. There's a lot of we've seen some other companies that are already, scaling pretty rapidly, that are doing a similar model to us with the D2C. Project Solar, Mona, um, Renogy recently released that they'll be doing something similar with the D2C for full installation of residential systems. So they were more like just for like RVs and camping and portable, but this whole new product and kind of like aspect of their business that they're introducing, they're going to do full installation as well. And they're D2C. So there's a lot of companies that are kind of adopting into this D2C idea, because the sales, it kind of I'm not gonna say it ruins solar. It's been necessary up until now, but I feel like it'll
Mhm.
be less relevant in the future, similar to kind of like how Elon's model of just kind of selling the car directly to the consumer, allowed him to keep the costs somewhat low for what they are, for a luxury vehicle, and kind of cut out that whole third party process. I think we're gonna see something similar with that in solar. I still think there's going to be definitely sales, definitely financing, like all those things are still going to exist. Um, just, I think there's going to be more alternatives and other options, because, right now, the way solar is, um, if you look at the average adopter, the household income average right now for a solar adopter is around 110,000, which is a lot higher than your average household income for a homeowner. Um, and just in general, it's a lot. It's above what an average income is at the moment. So if we
Hmm.
want to see more people adopt solar, we need alternatives that are more affordable. So that's essentially what we're trying to solve. And doing a more direct approach to the customer does it does essentially require that, because that third party, commission that normally your door to door sales are bringing in, it kind of it can can kind of kick those people out that don't qualify, basically.
Okay. Hmm. Interesting. So, and then for that, like, I know when before we got on here, kind of talking about an interesting customer interaction. I guess your customer is more um, direct to consumer, right? Saying your business model,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So you're getting basically sales online, right? Through like funnels, or how's that
Yeah,
work?
so when we're fully launched, it'll be an e-commerce platform,
Okay.
like the companies I was naming. I'm not sure if you're familiar with any of them, but you should definitely look into them, because they have an interesting model and an interesting
Mhm.
approach. I'm sure you've probably gotten ads from some of them. I know Project Solar does a lot of Instagram and Facebook ads, so I always get their ads, and they're pretty funny, and I can see how maybe the younger generations, more millennial homeowners, would probably opt into that. But I think that it's everything is kind of digital now, digital age. I do think that there's going to be at least some growth in that sector of like D2C when it comes to solar, and it's really just more about kind of opening up the market and making it
Yeah.
again more mass adoptable. But I mean, as far as like the sales structures for other more traditional companies goes, I think it's still going to exist for a while. Just like we still have car dealerships and car salesmen. So I don't think it's necessarily going to go away tomorrow. But I do see like a shift happening more in a D2C approach.
And you're kind of seeing that as like it's not as like a good or bad thing. It's more of like it's an option basically. It's
Yeah,
like
kind of
giving
the
that
way the
person
course of
option.
things run. Yeah,
Yeah.
for
Because
sure.
I feel like some people need to be sold on the idea, and for that they need to be
Yeah,
sold by somebody. Some people are already like, all right, I can just go ahead and do this. I already know. So
yeah.
therefore they don't need anyone to, pay attention. They don't need to just pay
Mhm.
somebody for their attention in order to get them on that product. So that does make sense. Um, and now, like, how do you utilize like tech, maybe like automations, AI, or like where's the tech going all in general? Like, do you use any automations or anything like that?
I mean, we're probably when we actually build out our website, we're definitely going to be integrating some tools that are
Hmm.
essentially AI tools that'll be, to kind of automate the whole process of like calculating a system and
Hmm. I think yeah, you're back. You're back now.
okay,
You're
yeah, it
saying
went out for a
calculating the
second.
system.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So like, and I mean, again, these are kind of tools that have existed and that a lot of companies already use. And
Hmm.
essentially, we're just gonna, do something similar with integrating those into our website when it comes to like, if a customer is interested in a system, it'll, kind of calculate it and guide them through it on its own. So it's almost like, an AI salesperson, if you want to
Hmm.
think about it like that, in a similar way, just more of like an automated process for the customer. And obviously, we'll have an emphasis on a lot of like educating the customer, just so when they go to make a purchase decision, they feel very confident in it. That's a very important part of any sales process.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, so I guess you guys were saying that you're gonna launch everything in the first quarter of 2024. Tell us a little bit about like the difference between the Tesla solar roofs and then all the different kind of solar roofs that are in the market right now.
Yeah. So I mean, today traditionally you have your third-party hardware, so it's going to be all of your
Mhm.
solar panels, your racking, and then any parts that are required for that installation. Conduit, wire, and then obviously your inverter, or if you're using optimizers, rapid shutdown devices, combiners, So, we have some major players in the game like Enphase and SolarEdge are obviously the dominant. And then there's, smaller companies like, Sunny Boy's been around for a while as well, as far as DC inverters go. You have from Texas, Solarc. They're pretty cool. They're pretty big though. I've installed one. They're huge. They're like a refrigerator put it on the wall. But I mean, same with batteries. Batteries are pretty big. Um, the technology itself is cool though. So, anyways, so you have all these hardware companies, and essentially you have to, put them all into one project and sale. So what we're doing is we're taking, basically, we're kind of cutting out most of what is normally involved with an installation with the system, and kind of integrating it just directly into the panel. So the panel itself is fully integrated with like its racking and everything. So it's similar to like a solar shingle product, which has become more popular recently. Obviously, the one most people probably know is Tesla.
Hmm.
And I mean, 100% props to Tesla and their engineering team. Sick product, very well developed. Just, but more on the realistic side, it's not really a scalable option.
Right.
Just because, I mean, even if they do manufacture it here or wherever and they kind of keep that cost low, you still have like the manufacturing of a whole new product. That's why it took 3 generations and several years for them to actually release it from when they actually announced it, which was like in 2019, 2018, I believe. It was a while ago. And then on top of that, what I've heard, because I used to, or I know some people who have worked with Tesla, is the installation process is kind of a nightmare. It's, it takes like not a crew, but a team. It takes a team or several teams to really get that installation going. So just in labor and in material, the cost is kind of high. Of course, the way that they price it, they make it sound like, what it would normally cost you to get a new roof and solar is essentially what their product costs. But it's still pretty high when you put it per watt, which is what we're used to using in the industry is cost per watt. They're still up there, upwards of $6 to $9, even though the way
Whoa.
they sell it is kind of like, oh, it's lower. And obviously, a traditional system that we're all used to seeing, and what has been the standard for 20 plus years is
Yeah.
those are usually typically going for anywhere from three on the higher end, six, just depending on the system again and the,
Yeah.
the brand of panels and everything. But yeah, still
Mhm.
3 to 6, and then you have solar shingles going. They could be 6 to 9, sometimes even more. And there's a couple other companies. There's Apollo has a they're called Apollo. They have a solar shingle product kind of similar to Tesla's. Honestly, the most impressive one I've seen, and it's very simple, is Gas or Timberline. They have a pretty cool little solar shingle product. But again, the only critique is that it doesn't look like it's your traditional panel has at least a top layer of glass and then the bottom layer, whatever plastic they use. So those are kind of more like the flexible panels that you'll see for sale that you can buy on Amazon and eBay that people slap on their RVs and stuff.
Right.
And the lifespan of those usually isn't very long. It's typically definitely not 10 years. And the standard in our industry is 25 to 30 is typically standard, at least warranty lifespan for products, and panels especially. So, I mean, I'm curious to see how their product ages, And the other big thing with the solar shingle products is troubleshooting and maintenance is it's going to be difficult, because I mean, you have all these different points of interconnection. So, I mean, when you troubleshoot and isolate a string or whatever the issue may be, um, I feel like that's going to be, I mean, just coming from an installer who's done a lot of maintenance and troubleshooting, it looks like it might be an issue in the future. So I don't know. Again, these are all pretty new technology, so we don't really know yet. Um, and I mean, the other thing I've also heard around the industry is just kind of like the grounding aspect of those systems is kind of still iffy. It's not entirely defined, I guess. There's still some issues there, and that's an issue that we're also dealing with our product that I mean, we have to have it resolved before we launch, obviously, because we're not going to launch with a faulty product. But grounding is a big aspect of an installation. So,
Mhm.
and I mean, we already have an idea of kind of what the solution might be, and we're getting ready to install some pilots, hopefully here coming up in like the fall, winter. So with those pilots, we'll be able to perform kind of like the final testing on our product before actually launching it.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, it seems like that's where it's going. Everybody, like I've talked to a lot of people that they're like, if the solar shingles, they look super cool. The solar
Hmm.
roofs, they look super cool. They're like, the only reason I haven't gone solar is because I don't like the way it looks on my house. So
Yeah,
moving towards that way, I think it's going to be an amazing product. And it seems like the industry, even going that way, is just that's the natural way it's going to go.
yeah,
And well, other than that, I appreciate you hopping on, telling us, where the industry's going, and what tech is actually coming out. What can I guess everybody can expect from you in the future is that product coming out on Q1 next year, right?
yeah. So I mean, I guess I really didn't touch on our technology, but
Hmm.
so essentially, the fully integrated panel, it's
Hmm.
frameless, which is cool.
Yeah.
And by being frameless, we eliminate that whole gap that you typically have between your traditional panels and your roof.
Hmm.
So it gives it that sleek look. So it's similar to solar shingle, but the reason we kept
Right.
it traditional is just because, again, like the potential for one panel versus little shingles is a lot higher. So you would require less panels versus several shingles. Um, and then also it kept the cost low. So at the end of the day, our goal is to kind of keep the cost as low as possible for our customer, our end customer,
Right.
because that's what's going to create a mass adoptable product is by bringing that cost down. Similar to the EV industry, if we want to see more people get EVs, then there needs to be more affordable options. So I definitely think solar is going to take a similar path, just not as direct, I guess, as cars. Cars are a little bit different, obviously. We're talking about a product that goes on your house in a car, but pretty similar. Kind of the same space with the whole EV versus solar. Um, but yeah, we're looking to launch. We're going to start off with just kind of these small DIY kits for those early adopters. That's like a whole another niche within our industry that
Yeah.
we kind of want to conquer. And then from there, we'll actually launch full scale systems that will, they can either be DIY'd or installed. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential in the industry to grow in a more mass market. So hopefully we can conquer that and really accelerate residential solar.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because I even knocked doors for pest control, right? And people
Hmm.
even had the direct to consumer pest control as well, where they would ship you, your little thing. And it
Kit.
kind of reminds me of
Okay.
that because it's like, hey, you guys get to have shipped your stuff. You can install it yourself or have somebody else install it, like the DIYers.
Yeah.
And then that really reminds me of that. So it's like it's wherever you want to take it, and just making it more affordable does make sense to
Yeah.
those people who don't. Obviously that's
I
the way
definitely
we're
believe,
going.
yeah, door
So
knockers are going to be necessary, especially when you talk about like luxury solar products.
yeah,
Um,
like
y-
the stuff
you
that
know,
looks like Tesla, but probably like better, more efficient.
yeah, or I mean, like just in general, like the high quality systems, like SunPower has probably one of the higher quality systems across the nation. And then they have their partner installers. A big one is here, which would be Freedom
Hmm.
that not Freedom Forever, but Freedom Power, which is like the Texas Freedom.
Hmm.
Um, any authorized some power, their product's pretty high, and then they obviously partner with Enphase, and they all come integrated with the micro. But yeah, those systems aren't the most affordable, but they definitely require some sort of sales because there's a lot of guidance that goes into them. If you're willing to pay the higher dollar, then of course, why wouldn't you want to get the best product available? So I think door knockers are definitely they're gonna be necessary for certain aspects of the industry, but then I think definitely opening up that market to a more standard consumer is going to be important for our industry to grow. So
Yeah. I
hopefully
mean, I
it
even think that it might. You think it'll transfer more into selling full systems than to selling batteries?
I mean really it's just like batteries pair with solar, essentially they're
Yeah.
perfect. Because obviously your solar doesn't work at night. You need to store that energy. And when we're talking about the Texas grid, we need a lot of storage because, that's where the issue occurs is whenever there's not enough generation, we need, some sort of backup. So obviously if you have your own battery storage, cool. I know there's a lot of battery storage projects like at a utility scale that are
Mhm.
in the, some of them are already happening. And then, those are also growing. I think those are also going to grow with utility solar as well. They kind of work hand in hand, just like residential, um, and commercial as well. There's a cool company. I guess they're technically also a startup out of Houston, Bronco Power Boost, I believe they're called. And he
Hmm.
has a cool technology where, there's a such thing as you can use your EV essentially as a backup battery,
Hmm.
but his inverter, instead of having where it can reverse, it goes through the battery and then it circles around, so it's not actually feeding back through the inverter and into your main panel. It's an interesting technology. Should definitely check it out. I think that he has a great product. We're hoping to maybe partner up with him on something in the future because pretty cool. He has a really interesting way of solving that idea. But yeah, I think not only battery storage, but like EVs being used as battery storage could be a big part of what the grid needs and kind of like
Hmm.
the future demand. And as EVs grow as well, it's just kind of they all kind of go hand in hand. They all kind of like it's all part of like a more sustainable future. Um, Not even about necessarily climate change, just like technologically wise, it makes sense. It's like all
Yeah.
this technology. It's kind of the route that technology takes. It's like we had brick phones and now we have iPhones. So
Do you
you
think
know,
everything will become more decentralized? Because it seems like the world in general, like, is getting more decentralized, and I feel like solar is something that is a decentralized product.
man, I hope so. you
Yeah.
know, I mean, these are things that definitely, I mean, just working in solar and installing, I've definitely had issues with, utilities and their, strict rules and stuff, and just kind of like the interaction between a company and a utility sometimes it's not frictionless. So,
Yeah.
decentralizing things like, obviously energy, which are like basic human, you know, necessities. It's essential. I think it's like, definitely, hopefully part of the future because it would make sense.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I mean, Warren Buffett said, the transfer of energy to the consumer is going to be the biggest transfer of wealth ever. So, I mean, it's I definitely think that that's everything that's going. I mean, everything seems like it's becoming more decentralized. More and more smaller groups of people, more and more smaller like niche down things are coming about. Just because like
Yeah.
I feel like humans are trying to fix more problems, and we've kind of fixed the big problems.
Hmm.
We're trying to fix those like hyper niche problems. And I definitely I
Yeah.
can see it. I can see it becoming decentralized because it solar in itself should be a decentralized product. It should be, your power goes from your battery to your car to your all these things, and they should be, obviously we want to make sure like if there's an outage, like, um I always used to say, if your solar's running and it's connected to the utility and a lineman's trying to fix something, you can get shocked from the system or whatever. um
Yeah.
is what I was trained. But I mean, having that battery, if they have a battery, they shouldn't have to.
No. Yeah.
Everything should
So
be
yeah.
inside all together. We shouldn't even have to really. I mean,
Essentially,
yeah,
yeah.
connect it to the utility for that extra line of power, but like,
Yeah, for backfeed. But
huh,
I mean, like, essentially with the battery, it's like you have your own grid.
yeah,
So, I mean, if you have a battery or an EV battery or whatever sort of storage you have, the good thing is that, yeah, if you have solar, it can go into the battery. The battery can then feed your home in an outage without backfeeding. And that way, wherever they are working on the grid, they should be 100% safe. Because the big thing in solar is anytime you maintenance or troubleshoot, you have to cut off every point of connection that could potentially shock you. So obviously at the utility level, it's much higher voltage and amperage. So, you know, the safety is always there. But yeah, I mean, again, that's just another indication that this is the path that the technology is taking is battery storage because it's necessary essentially. So,
mhm,
and I mean, obviously lithium's been blowing up. Everything that has to do with batteries and lithium batteries and alternative to lithium batteries. So, I definitely I know that they're going to go hand in hand. So it's kind of like a necessary you know technology to kind of include in everything.
yeah. Well,
But I like the idea
on
of decentralizing everything for sure.
yeah, like honestly, on that is something that is very exciting to me because decentralizing is, it seems like that's where we're going, and I want it to become more and more decentralized in that way. But other than that, talking about the future and everything like that, I guess we'll go ahead and end it off. But I appreciate you coming on, everybody. I can put a link for, I guess, your website that'll be dropping soon, and then
Yeah.
everything, reaching out
Well, right now we have the
to
landing
anybody who
page, so yeah,
Okay,
for
yeah, I'll
sure.
put the
Yeah,
landing
you
page
can
on
link the
there.
landing page. Yeah, it'd be cool.
All right, sounds good. Well, everybody, go ahead and check it out in the description below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. All
Awesome.
right.
Yeah, you have a good one.